It hit October 2019. Yes, it was triggered
Oh, okay.
by the thrush virus disease, which ended up
Oof.
causing the Bell's palsy. Before that, I never really let other people, give me advice. I never took advice. I mean, again, I was always a stick in the mud. I mean, I found what worked for me, and that's the way I stuck to it. Never really gave anybody any time to think about, or give anybody's opinion any time to think about, hey, maybe this would work or that would work. Yeah, I kept logs. I kept logs on, how long I practiced, what I practiced, how I felt. Certain notes didn't speak as well as others on certain nights. Yeah, so it was it was a something you had to be patient with. I mean, there's just no way around it. Step back, think about the other things in life. Because I mean, you're not going to play trumpet your whole life. I mean, there's going to be a point where you're going to have to stop anyway. But whatever your thing is, I mean, whether you're in a big God, a big church person, I mean, spend time with that. Spend time with your family, especially kids, because they grow up and things change. So, um, be patient and try to have peace with whatever happens.
All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. Today, I wanted to get somebody else who has gone through a bout of Bell's palsy. And fun fact about this guy, I didn't know this until we talked, but he lives about an hour and 15 minutes from where I grew up. And turns out I used to go to auditions in high school where his kids went to school as well. So that was a kind of a fun connection that we were able to make, and we have some mutual friends as well, being from Central Pennsylvania. So without further ado, Mr. Craig Kenney, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for our conversation today. I think the more people that we have talking about these things, just the more people that are going to be helped going through it, that are going
Right.
through it right now.
Yep.
So you went through fairly recently a bout of Bell's palsy, right? Right before the pandemic, wasn't it?
It hit October 2019. Yes, it was triggered
Oh, okay.
by the thrush virus disease, which ended up
Oof.
causing the Bell's palsy. So, yeah, mine was caused by viral.
Interesting. And so, what kind of just let's just jump into it. What was your experience? Starting with the I guess the thrush, and then kind of go from there. How what was your
Well,
experience with the
actually,
Bell's palsy and things like that?
it I turned 50 September 26th of 2019, and a couple of days later, well, actually, I was playing really well. I have a cousin that's a missionary in Haiti,
Oh,
and he
cool.
was home with one of his friends from Haiti, and sitting in my basement here, and he was like, show him what you can do, show off and stuff, and I was playing really great, and it was funny because I was actually playing one of Andy's trumpets that came from Haiti, and it's unclear where I got the thrush, if the virus could have been from whoever used that trumpet before, but most likely I picked up the thrush where I took my youngest daughter to get flute lessons. Her child had thrush, so most likely that's where I picked up the virus from. Because like 2 weeks after that, I was really sick, and I
Mm-hmm.
went to the doctors, and of course, adults don't get thrush. I mean, it's just a little kid's problem.
Sure.
So, it was kind of a surprise that that's what it was, but I started on treatments, antibiotics and stuff, and of course that really doesn't do much for viruses, but I was going through a regimen of different medications and stuff to try to get rid of it quicker. Um, and then I believe it was the 21st of October, I woke up and my right side of my face was completely sagging. And of course, as a trumpet player, I'm panicked because I'm in the midst of a lot of gigs.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot coming up for me too, and I I typically don't miss gigs. I mean, the one gig I missed before that was the day my youngest was born, like 18 years before that. So, I mean, I don't miss.
Sure.
Um, and I play through whatever hits me and I deal with it. So, um, it was unusual. I mean, I figured I had a stroke the way it looked. Um, so I waited a couple hours so I could call my doctor, and of course the doctors couldn't see me till like in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I spent the whole day on Google, you know, searching, everything I could try to find about it, and that didn't do any good for me because I mean, I was reading too much into it. Because I mean,
Google
still,
MD.
yeah, exactly. I was my own doctor, but I kind of had it narrowed down the way it reacted that it was probably going to be Bell's palsy before I even got to my doctor. So I got in to see him and, sat in the chair and, he does his exam and sits back and goes, well, you have Bell's palsy. He goes, you won't die. You'll be fine. I'm like, "Yeah, but I play trumpet. So there's a livelihood part of this
Right.
that, is a big deal. But, he's like sitting back saying, you're fine. You're fine. But, they don't understand, especially, not dealing with musicians as much in central Pennsylvania as if it was in a Philly or more of a city area. So
Right. Right.
um, anyway, went home, started on prednisone because I guess that's the common treatment for Bell's palsy, and tried to get my trumpet out and play. And of course, the right side I couldn't hold any kind of. I mean, all I did was see bare. I mean, I couldn't hold anything on the right side. So very frustrated about it. So, I dealt with it. And the next day comes around and it's not really any better. And the second day I noticed my right eye was also, I couldn't shut it. I
Hmm.
mean, it wasn't going the whole way closed. So, um, again, stayed home, researched more myself. Decided that night, I'm not I wasn't a huge Facebook person to give like personal information out because the tendency is people have not good things to reply to you about. That it's
Mm-hmm.
always something negative, or at least it seems to be in this day and age. But
Sure.
I ended up recording myself trying to play the trumpet, and I put it on Facebook. And I described my situation, and I says, anybody have any help or any insight? Message me, private message me through Facebook. And I went to bed, and the third day I woke up, and I had over 300 messages from different people around the world, people that I was friends with and stuff. And it was absolutely amazing the people that came to me right away saying, this is what they did. They had Bell's palsy. They dealt with it. There was a few people that said it could be focal dystonia, which is more
Mm-hmm.
permanent. It's
Right.
not a something you really recover from. Um, but yeah, I mean, I had, and actually, there was a lady just a few miles south of me that had it, that played bassoon in the Baltimore Symphony, that had it on stage. She had her bout while she was playing that she just lost the feeling sense on her right side of her
Oh
face.
my
So,
goodness.
somebody so local, I had no idea, and it was great to talk to her. Um, Everybody had their own suggestions. Her suggestion was doing acupuncture, which I ended up
Oh wow.
doing, so I couldn't afford it anymore. Because of course that's not a medical coverage. But
Right.
you know, I was taking advice from a lot of people. I mean, and I'm good buddies with some of the guys in DC, and they gave me names of guys around the DC premier bands that had it, and one thing led to another, and actually I was taking too many people's advice. I apologize. I have a little bit of a speech impediment from the bells yet. That's one unresolved issue.
You
Um,
good?
but yeah, some of the the clarinetist in the Baltimore Symphony, he had it. Um, there was some guys from Europe that never recovered from it. Uh, and then some of the people that really made the difference. Dan Miller, who I don't know if you're familiar with, trumpet player. He had
Yeah.
passed, I guess, about a year ago now.
Yeah.
Uh, he he said, "Call me immediately. I want you to talk to Bobby Shue." So this was like in the middle of the night. Of course, I didn't call him right in the middle of the night. And then there was Marty Bound from New York City, a great
Mm,
trumpet player from that area.
mm-hmm.
And he actually had the same advice. He's like, "You got to call Bobby Shue. He's the one that can fix you." So, of course,
He's the
I got
man.
the information. Yeah, and I was a little hesitant just because the intimidation factor. I've played with great players. I've been around great players, but just to pick up the phone and call Bobby Shue out of the blue was really intimidating for me. So yeah, it took about 3 days till I got the confidence to call him.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I still continued to look at people's advice and talk to other people. Um, there's some exercises in Europe. I believe it's Feldenkrais exercises. It's facial exercises and stuff
Mm-hmm.
that, I Googled and then did some YouTube research and I did some of those exercises on my own. This was before Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was, I had scheduled the acupuncture right away. So I had one of those sessions done. Um, and then I called Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
And that pretty much was the change part of my life. So he basically said, stop everything you're doing. Because he said, I was continuing to try to play, to force myself to play. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, the first things first, you're going to develop bad habits. You're going to move the mouthpiece. It's going to be all sorts of, problems down the road by trying to play when you can't, facilitate your embouchure.
Right.
So yeah, I shut it down. From that point on, I started meeting him with him every week on Zoom and stuff. And, we went from there. He had his procedure or his recommendations for me to follow, and I followed it to the T. Um, from that point on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's wonderful. Bobby is the go to guy. And it's interesting that still for me, like even though the condition may be the same, like for Bell's palsy, for example, people get through it in different ways, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show is because we're all different, right?
yeah,
Our bodies
right,
are all different, and what works for us is all different. But I
right,
still feel like there are certain principles of recovery that are universal, right? No matter if you were a trumpet player, bassoonist, or pianist, whatever. One of them is that what you just said is learning to put the horn away. Learning to trust that, because I
right,
feel for me that's what facilitated my injury was not putting it away right when
right,
things started to go south, and I'm sure it is for most people because it's it's obviously such a big part of our lives, right?
right.
And so in that time when you were learning to put the horn away, kind of what helped you to, I guess, trust that and actually put it away, and how did you kind of like stay in the game musically without that,
Well,
you know?
Bobby was an incredible coach. I'm going to call him a coach because it's exactly
Mm-hmm.
what he had to do with me. Because normally I'm set in my ways and I stick to it. I don't deviate. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, right out of the gate, he's like, I don't remember. I might have been the 25th or 26th person he's helped, and he's like, Craig, you know, only one person has given up. Everybody else has come back and succeeded with the way he tells people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just gave me, hope that I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have in the past few days because when you get advice from a couple hundred people of, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this,
Right.
and you really don't, and the thing is, everybody, Bell's is caused by so many different things, stress can cause it, just so many other ways, high blood pressure. And to listen to Bobby say, this is what you need to do. Step one, put the horn away. Step two, start to learn to relax a little bit. And then, we did the procedures where to start, we were doing like hot compresses on my face, alternating sides. No matter, even if it didn't affect the left side at all, we were doing equal time on left side of the face to right side of the face with like hot compresses. So I'd put a washcloth in the microwave until it was so hot I could hardly stand it on my face. and I would lay it on each side of my face and alternate, and I would do that many times a day. And then he had the buzzing routine where you put two fingers between your lips and you try to make a buzz in the center.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And you start wider and you can move in. So that was very tough because I never did that before, and apparently that was one of his things to do normally. So I mean that was for me that was really really tough to learn to do, but I got it. Um, and those were actually the two primary things out of the gate that we did.
Mhm.
And not only that, but I mean, Bobby's just such a great guy. I mean, he has these great stories about the people that recovered, and that made me, get very positive about it. Because normally I'm not a positive person when something happens. I mean, I'm usually the worst person to get advice from when there's something bad happening. Because it just not in my nature to think positive when something's really really bad.
Yeah.
So it just was little things like that, and then that led to spitting rice, or
Mhm.
sunflower seeds. You could do either one, but I did rice. Learning to dead center,
Mhm.
and then weeks later, that led to starting to buzz on a trombone mouthpiece. Because you worked wider before the trumpet
Mhm.
mouthpiece. So I spent a lot of days just blowing a trombone mouthpiece to try to get things, and that really helped. And all in all, it was about 7 weeks until I started to play the trumpet again. Didn't play well, but I could,
Mhm.
play it. But so that was the routine over at that time, and we met, online many times. I mean, I wish I could have gone and seen him personally. I mean, my goal yet is to actually fly out and see him because he basically saved my career playing. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if taking all the advice from the different people would have, done anything. It may have. I mean, I'm sure other ways work.
Mhm.
But when you try to incorporate everybody's advice, I
Mhm.
could see that wasn't going to work. So, but
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was finished.
No, that's the other thing that's I think so important with recovery is that everyone's got their own opinion. I mean, it's kind of like with musicians, Facebook could be our Google MD, right?
Yeah, right,
It
right,
could
right,
really become that because everyone's got their own experiences, but it really and everyone's coming from a place where they want to help, right? They wouldn't be messaging
right.
you if they didn't, but it's just so important that when we're going through recovery that we have somebody who's like a one-on-one mentor, right?
Right.
And there are so
And
many people that yeah, go ahead.
that was my hesitance about doing Facebook because I was like, anytime you see anybody put anything on about trumpet on Facebook, there's always somebody there to rip them apart, and
Mm-hmm.
I was so worried, I mean, not that I ever had a big ego, but it's like, you don't want to be torn down even further than, you can make yourself. But yeah, and the other thing, Bobby taught me was patience because, I mean, that was the whole thing. I mean, you can't rush it, and everybody comes
Nope.
back at a different pace. I mean,
Yep.
I'm working with two people now with bells, and yeah, it's amazing how it's a different rebound with everybody.
It's kind of a beautiful thing too because we it just gives us our own unique experience that will then help us to help another person, um, and that was actually where I wanted to go next. Is kind of how you've seen in the last, I guess it's what been 3.5 years or so, almost 4 years,
Yeah, it's 4 years.
4 years, 4 years now. Yeah, I'm
Right.
not
Yep.
very much a math guy. um, where how it's influenced not only your playing since you've come back, but also your teaching, and how you interact with other musicians and other trumpet players. It's like how this experience has benefited you, and also benefited others.
Yeah. So before that, I never really let other people, give me advice. I never took advice. I mean, again, I was always a stick in the mud. I mean, I found what worked for me, and that's the way I stuck to it. Never really gave anybody any time to think about, or give anybody's opinion anytime to think about, hey, maybe this would work or that would work. Um, for sure, it definitely changed me, especially with the negative part of it, because you can't be negative about the return. I mean, um,
Mm-hmm.
too many people, the people that fail really, it's more a mental problem than it is, physical.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, a giving up part. Because some of the stories that you can Google, or go on YouTube and see stories of guys that have Bell's palsy that, took years and years and years to come back. And there's some people that never come back. And you can see in their videos that they're never very sure of themselves or positive. It's always, well, I did this today. This is what my practice sounds. I'll try again tomorrow, and it's always that kind of rut that they're in. Um, but yeah, I mean, positivity is definitely changed with me. I mean, I with the former band leader that I played, I didn't always have the utmost confidence. I don't want to say negative things, but I mean, the situation that I was put in for a lot of years, your confidence can be shot quick in that routine. So I think the door opened for me just to be a completely different, player, person, whatever, as far as the positivity of it. And, I passed parts now. I never was I was always in the rut that, I had to play the part. I didn't give parts away. I mean, I didn't consider anybody a co-lead with me. My best friend in the world now is my co-lead with my band and a lot of bands. So, and I give Brian equal time to me. I try to give him parts, because it's not about me anymore. It's about making music, and it's about
Mm-hmm.
And now that I have my own band, it's about the group. It's not no longer me worrying about it. So that definitely changed. Not that I was never an egotistical player. I mean, you can talk to anybody. I mean, I'm the last person that would say that. If anything, I'm quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I kept too much in and ignored it. But and as far as there was a lot of people, that gave me positive vibes outside of Bobby too. I mean, when they found out, because I was actually continuing to post on Facebook like weekly updates on how things progressed, and it was absolutely amazing, the comments and the messages that I got from different people. Encouragement and just stick with it. And it was one of those situations where I felt like there was no way I could give back up. Because I want to quit on my own terms. I want to, if when I retire, I don't know when that'll be.
Mm-hmm.
When I don't feel like playing anymore, I want it to be on my own terms. I don't want something to take it away from me that I can't play.
Right.
Um, so that was a different thing. Um, plus the circumstances of the band that ended in 2020. I didn't want that to, you know, negatively affect my future either. So I also had a goal there that I wanted to have my own band. There was a lot of incentives to come back,
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely made them work for me. And now I've had quite a few different people that I talk to, not necessarily come to me for regular help, but want advice and stuff. I don't consider myself a teacher, and I'm not going to replace Bobby Shue on advice for sure. But yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of guys from New Jersey, Atlantic City area call me, for help with bells, and I just had another guy from Philly call me for some advice, and it's been great working with him. Um, Again, everybody's so different. I mean, just because what my pattern was to come back isn't working necessarily for them the same way. So um, it's an amazing thing, and it's an amazing amount of studies that Bobby put into the facial muscles and just everything to go along with trumpet playing that he has. Because I've never met anybody that he's an encyclopedia. I mean, basically. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he seems, you know, and he's so caring about it. I mean, end of every video and stuff, he'd be very positive about it, and we continue to talk. I mean, we're good friends now. I mean, I wish I could be out there on the West Coast and visit him, but we keep in contact, and yeah, it's a great new friendship that shame it took this many years to have.
Right. Well, it's these types of things that can kind of bring us together. It's
Yeah.
these it's kind of sometimes the harder things that build the strongest relationships. Sounds kind of corny, but it's kind of true. And I think it's
Right.
especially important. I think that's something that I definitely learned during the pandemic was that you need those relationships in order to kind of stay functional. You know.
Right.
And so anyway, to kind of transition to you were kind of alluding to it earlier. The time that you were not able to play or that you were taking the time off the horn, I found that to be a very critical time for me, and I'm curious just to hear about your perspective, because when you take away your primary form of I see as a way of communication, right?
Yeah.
My musical instrument
Right.
or expression, however you want to swing it. You have to find something to keep that reason why you're doing it alive, right? Or else the music
Right.
can sometimes just kind of not become as important, even though it's
Right.
still something where it should be, or maybe it shouldn't be. People just need to figure that out for themselves. But during that time, what did you do to kind of like keep that music um, alive? Or keep it going, that
Well,
drive within you.
I mean, there's a lot of things going on really in my life that always kept music going. My oldest daughter is a very successful clarinet player, and in 2019 she was at Temple University, so I was driving down there all the time to her concerts, and that kept me focused because um, I want to support her everywhere I can. That's going to be her livelihood. So you know, I I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort, with her, concerts, and actually I studied up on the clarinet. Never
Oh
played it,
man.
of course, but yeah, yeah. So I mean, I was always, involved with her. And my youngest played flute in high school. She was a good player, but she had a different outlook on what she wanted to do for life. She's not going to be a musician full time. I mean, I think she's going to play, but it's not her passion to play full time like my oldest. So, but I had her concerts in high school then to go to, and we have the local symphonies around here, the youth symphonies, and so, I mean, I had those things going on. I still continued to be the manager for Dave Stahl Big Band, and so I was still doing personnel for him. I was still actually I had to hire people to replace me, which was unusual
Hmm.
because I did miss the Dave Stahl Sacred Orchestra had a job, and I missed one of those. But I've always been blessed with good players in my sections, and I always have somebody that I could rely on that I had confidence in. So, it was that's the way I kept active. I was very involved with Dave Stahl. I mean, I was doing the web page, I was doing, any of the PR end of it. I was doing a ton of work for him behind the scenes besides playing. So I was very involved with that. And, I missed one sacred orchestra job in October, of course, because that was only a few weeks or the week after. And then I missed a big band job in November, and it was it was quite an honor because the people that I hired to come play my book was Joe Masello and Von Nark was there, and
Oh my goodness.
so yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I didn't mind missing sitting back listening to those guys playing my book. So, uh, but
That's
yeah, the
awesome.
guys were playing. Yeah, it took two guys to play that book, so I had a lot of confidence coming back to me. It's like, pretty bad when you got to hire two to replace one. I'm like, wow. No, that wasn't the intent. That's just the availability. And actually,
Right.
there's a great player from New Jersey that helped out too, Joe Scannello. New Jersey, Atlantic City player, one of the best players around. He helped out too for me. So, yeah, I had definitely reserves. And like I said, in the big band, I mean, I I had three guys that could easily, play my parts. So when I was able to actually come back and play a gig the second Thursday of December, I didn't play much lead that night. I mean, the parts were passed around the guys, and it was a struggle for 2 hours, and I got through it. But that was it was basically 7 weeks till I could stop any air seepage that I could even try to play. So Um, and that's where we were at that point.
Hmm. Yeah, and I that's you're kind of hitting everything I want to talk about. This is pretty cool, pretty awesome. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about was as you started to come back, you know, obviously you're not going 0 to 60 when you're coming back from something like that, right? And so I think you had mentioned this on a different podcast with Jose Johnson. I was wondering if you could share it. You said you had kept a daily log or something like that, where you were recording your progress as you were starting to come back, right? I think
So
that was yeah. Go ahead.
I've kept a log. When I started with the Dave Stahl band, big band in '97, from that point on, I pretty much kept playing logs of gigs, how they went, how I felt.
Okay.
Uh, I actually went back that far. And I was so enamored to get on that band because, I mean, he's one of the greatest lead players, greatest trumpet players of all time. And I mean, not that the way our relationship kind of ended, but I still have the utmost respect for him, his playing and what he's done. But yeah, I kept logs throughout my career pretty much. And then when Bells hit, I was making weekly, daily notes, and then eventually just weekly notes on how things, progressed. Um, especially on where I felt my range was going. Um, because I mean that was the biggest struggle. Tone quality was back. I mean, tone quality within about a 2 octave range was fairly decent, but to go any further, advanced getting the higher register back was the real challenge. So, yeah, I kept logs. I kept logs on, how long I practiced, what I practiced, uh, how I felt. Certain notes didn't speak as well as others on certain nights. Yeah, so it was it was a something you had to be patient with. I mean, there's just no
Hmm.
no way around it. It had to be that way.
Yeah, and there's that principle I think that's just universal to everyone's recovery is that you have to take the small wins when you get them, right? And you also have
Right.
to take the small steps back, I guess, when they happen, because
Right.
like you said before, and I believe this wholeheartedly, is that you can't put a time stamp or a timeline on your recovery, um, or else you could end up doing, or you can end up prolonging it if you try to like
Right.
put your own timeline on it, and that's why I wanted to bring that up was because I think that's such a critical part of recovery is just taking them one day at a time, right? And then kind of celebrating the small wins when they happen, and then just kind of observing, right?
Right.
So it's just recovery is just such a fickle thing. It's so unique to everybody, and yet such a and because it's so unique, it then helps us to help other people, who then have their own unique experiences, and we just keep going from there. So,
Well, and and the thing is, people that don't play trumpet don't realize how physical an instrument it is. And playing that small mouthpiece, you're blowing into a nickel,
mhm,
size cup and or dime size or whatever you're using, and the bad habits can be created so quickly, um, just by moving something millimeters differently than what you're used to. And that was part of the patience thing because the bad habits can come quick. I mean, if anything that's different from before bells to after bells is bad habits now are quicker to develop for me.
mhm,
I think I'm a better player than before bells. A different a different player for sure. But one thing I definitely realized, especially with the lack of work since COVID, um, the bad habits definitely can come in quicker than what it used to when it was playing every week somewhere.
mm, that's a good point.
It's when you're not playing as much, that's when there's bad habits. When you could shift the mouthpiece a lot. I mean, I had a simple thing of actually my prescription changed for my eyes, and I was actually changing the focus of the bell of the horn earlier this year, and I called Bobby up and talked to him about it, and he's like, did you think about you might be compensating for something else when you're playing? And by gosh, that was it. I had to straighten myself back out, but it was little things like that that can cause major changes in a trumpet player's playing.
Mm-hmm. Which goes back to the importance of just putting it away when you need to,
Right,
and even not even when you're just. I think this is just so important for anybody, even if they're not going through an injury, is learning to put it away at the right time, and putting it away for I'm not saying you kind of you're not slacking off, right, or leaving things undone when they need to, but learning to kind of trust the process, right, as our show is named,
right,
right, and a day off could be more beneficial than pushing through a day of
right.
playing, right, because then bad habits can form from that.
Oh,
So.
and I gained a ton of trust in my other players. I mean, because it's like, again, going back to the thing where I never really gave up anything for anybody. And now I've learned to kind of sit back and say, hey, you can play that. I don't need to play it.
Mm-hmm.
I have trust in other people. I mean, that's a big change in me too. I mean, I was always too bullheaded to give things away, but that
Mm-hmm.
definitely has changed for me in a good
Yeah,
way.
and then it builds other people up because they're able to
Right.
get experiences that they wouldn't have otherwise had. So it's injury can be a beautiful thing. It's really interesting how that works. Well, Craig, thank you so much for your time today. I really really enjoyed getting to know you and your situation. I really think that your experience will help a lot of people. And so yeah, it's been great, and I'll have to give you a call once I'm up for the holidays or something to get a hang going or something. But kind of to just wrap up, there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this show who are in the thick of it. They may be trying to come back, or they may be in that period of rest, giving themselves the time of rest that they need to recover from their injury. And so, and trumpet player or not, what would be kind of the one piece of advice that you would give to them, as they're going through that?
Step back, think about, the other things in life. Because, I mean, you're not going to play trumpet your whole life. I mean, there's going to be a point where you're going to have to stop anyway. But, whatever your thing is, I mean, whether you're, a big God, a big church person, I mean, spend time with that. Spend time with your family, especially kids, because they grow up and things change. So, um, be patient and try to have peace with whatever happens.
Amen to that. Amen to that. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Craig. Wish you the best out there in Dallas town and Philly with your projects. And to the rest of you out in podcast land, keep on keeping on and trusting the process. Things will get better, and your injury will be a very beautiful experience for you if you let it. And so until next time, take care. Thanks for listening today. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. To see a full bio for our guest today, see the show notes, or go to our website at trusttheprocesspodcast.com. Make sure you share this with a musician you care about who is going through injury, a music educator in your life, or anyone just trying to make it in life. If you have a suggestion for a guest or topic to cover, shoot me an email at trusttheprocesspodcast@gmail.com or send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. Before we go, I just want to give a heartfelt thank you and shout out to my team, Daniel Baldwin, who is my audio engineer, Kevin West, who does all music and sound effects for the show, Peyton Womack, our website developer, and my sister, Dana Lovell, who created the logo and promotional materials. We wouldn't have the show without them. So tune in next time for another episode of Trust the Process.